This is Matthew Brower, and I'm here with Javier Venegas. And we today are going to be getting into a couple of current events items and also showing everybody some of the free resources that you can get by clicking on the Private Trust Explained link in our bio, because it's kind of come to our attention. And it's pretty obvious that the material that we deal with is pretty occulted to the average person and not many people know about it. So there's a lot of questions. And so to get ahead of that, we put together, well, I should say Javier put together an ebook that is a deep dive on all things private trusts. And so we wanted to just show everybody what that looks like, where you can find it, and yeah, and then we'll be covering some other current events topics. How are you doing today, Javier?
I'm doing good, man. As usual, because I tend to talk a lot, even though I don't want to. I have my little sparkling water. Doing well. I'm excited to talk about some of the current events and kind of shed some light on that.
There's a lot going on, man. There's no shortage of stuff to get into.
Pretty much how quick information moves, and and as a result, because information moves so quick, so does our implications and assumptions and conclusions, which maybe be faulty.
Yeah, so I think just to get us started off here, as always, we're open to questions. Anybody that's watching wants to send in a question, we'd love that. That's the main purpose of doing this, and secondary part is us just being able to disseminate a perspective on things that we don't see anywhere else, and so we feel it's kind of necessary to get out here and explain. So I know, Javier, you wanted to talk a little bit about the goings-on of the Elon fiasco that everyone's kind of reacting to right now.
Yeah, all these conversations start with me not wanting to talk about it, but because I don't want to talk about it, it's just so saturated with it that I'm just like, what's going on? So I, even before this call, I had to ask you, hey, just give me a brief of what happened, and then did a little bit of research, and it's typical the reactions that are out in different platforms. And I just, as a rule of thumb, like I highly recommend people to, especially in this age, be as neutral as possible with any pieces of information, because so many of it is so polarizing. They want you to be against it or for it. You shouldn't make decisions like this. You should be kind of reflective and contemplative, and then be reasonable, not just, we're because of technology, I feel we're kind of pushed to make these decisions so quick that we don't even know what happens. And I think what happens is the civilization and everything changing, and then people being impressed upon with ideas and then stories. So obviously I was showered with news with Elon Musk buying a huge portion of Twitter for an enormous amount of money. And I mean, what do I see? I see a lot of people just kind of giving him this either terrible backlash, and he's going to move us into hell, and this is it, or he is our savior, or he's, the glorified individual. And it's just so tiring because of the level of volatility. And I'm like, how come no one has just like a neutral answer? Like, hey, we don't actually know him, we haven't met him, or it seems like nothing neutral. So actually, I wrote something up that I want to read, that I wrote in response to how people are reacting to this. Because I don't know about you, Matt, but I get the sense that there's this thing in the air that now, just like any other politician or person in power, this person is going to be the person who is going to solve. This is, the Redeemer. This is Christ. This is like, it's not realistic. And people are constantly not only idolizing, but venerating, right? So let me just get through this and let me know if you agree with this, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
This is let me point out, and this is all because I just want to point out a tendency. Let me point out a tendency in human behavior that may shed light in understanding this strange phenomena, which is all this buzz that doesn't even matter, but people make it matter, which I believe is attributed to the lack of education, whether that's socioeconomic, law, whatever. There's just a lack of education and a lack of discipline and control with things reacting and happening. So the question is, not so much as is why Elon did what he did or whatever he says, but why are people apotheosizing and venerating other people? Like, I get, this is like a Hollywood ritual. Isn't this just like, hey, you get a gold star for doing something? We always do this, especially with like power and rights. It's like, no, we cannot claim. So another person has to do it for us. We choose that person. It's like you delegate your own will, your own power to somebody else by the very same like democratic entities. It's just ironic. So that is built, right? So, sorry, I skipped here. So why are people, number one, apotheosizing and venerating other people? Or is this a result of people's cognitive programming that designates them to ritualize another person or agent to petition for them, for God, for power, for rights on our behalf? I cannot explain to you that this is probably, years and years of as a result of technology creating something that we don't have and we think we have control over, but there's forces that are unseen. I get that there is a cultural atmosphere, and I think everyone can agree. There is this, and I want people to understand what this means. This cultural atmosphere that people create, like nothing could happen, nothing, but it could be shared all over the internet, and it could produce an imaginative world that does not exist. People need to understand and discern that, like, this mental phenomenon. But there's this cultural atmosphere that is built when someone who is slightly agreeable, right, in the democratic public, when they say something that seems to be in our best interest, we get that. We get, we kind of like Joe Rogan and we kind of like this person and they're kind of speaking true. And then they become like an agent, an officer, whether or not they even chose to be that or not. Right. The people democratically chose that person. And now there is a delegation of all of those people who have given their power to these people to what? I don't know. What's Elon Musk supposed to do? So, but bottom line, I think people in this age more than ever need to be surely grounded with the facts of reality. And remember that freedom isn't built solely on the shoulders of others, but is surely dependent on each individual's ability to exercise those freedoms we know to be self-evident. Elon Musk buying more shares of Twitter doesn't discharge you from your contractual obligations as a federal citizen and a taxpayer. So what's happening? What's he doing in relation to you, your freedoms, your rights, other than a cognitive magic trick that produces a monetary interest? There's money in there. So it's a shame that so much of journalism and all that and opinions are shallow, and they just take things as these assumptions and these implications as they are. And then we're having this conversation again with some next president or some next official who is like, yeah, I speak on behalf of the interest of all others. It's like, well, how do we know that's true? How do we know that it's true up to this time? It hasn't been. So why would it be any different now? Mm-hmm. It's just an incredible phenomenon that I find interesting. I'm not really involved in politics or anything like that, because I know this roller coaster of things that happen, and most of it is non-existent. All of it is digital, and it's incredible the amount of power and influence that fake illusory world produces contractually in this. It has obviously physical repercussions.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful take on it, and it pretty much sums it all up. I think that one of the biggest things that human beings need to do is realize the difference between the world that is within their felt experience of life and this digital world. And we can say that, but we're in the digital world now. But what we're saying is actually things that will allude back to your direct experience. So as you mentioned there, like you need to be grounded in something, grounded in your own direct experience, so that all of these things that are happening, you turn on the TV or you check your social media, and there's new tumult in the world. There's new revolutions and all these crazy, terrible things happening. But then you look out the window and the birds are chirping and the sun is shining, and like if you weren't plugged into that and giving that so much stock, you would just be enjoying the sunshine and doing what you need to do in your day. But as you said, we've been conditioned so completely and thoroughly to divest from our own direct experience and invest in this, play that's happening in the digital world. And there's always a new character that's going to show up and, capitalize on that free energy that we're giving out.
Exactly. All the characters have been invented, all the positions have been filled, and this is a story on repeat that's based on archetypes. All these are impressions that we have to be able to recognize so that we don't commit the same mistakes. Mm-hmm. So that we understand that our power, our rights, like all of that comes from God. It doesn't come from the state or a corporation, and much less another person named Elon Musk, who has nothing to do with you, mm-hmm. right? Other than that, he's another living person, but he's not even operating in that capacity. He's operating solely as a legal fiction. And there's real estate in legal fiction, and that world is something that people don't really understand. And that's why I also say that there's a lack of education. Obviously, the majority isn't going to be completely up to par with everything that everyone needs to know to not make mistakes. But there's a way to deal with it. And that way is not to like just react or give an opinion, because these things are like our past. We cannot just impulsively provide an opinion. We have to see what's going on and see the bigger picture, because everyone's always trying to convince you of a problem that doesn't exist. Everyone's always trying to convince you that there's issues that are in the scope of larger philosophical questions are meaningless. That's why it's like, why are we even talking about this individual entity buying up shares of Twitter? Is it because Twitter is just popular and a lot of people have been, they've interacted with it and it has an influence over it, and somehow that equates? It's like freedom. Like, no, it's a corporation. It can do whatever it wants. It doesn't matter if Elon buys all of it. It doesn't matter. It's still a legal fiction. It doesn't have rights like a human does. It doesn't have the ability to give another human life or give it authority that belongs to God.
Right. And like the idea that the energy that people are putting into this is that somehow Elon Musk opening things up to conservative voices on Twitter somehow has given them more of a First Amendment right to free speech. And that is the biggest illusion of it all. It's such a symbol of our lack of understanding of our own inalienable rights. What happens on Twitter, regardless if it's the most, crackdown, Gestapo censored platform in the world, or if it's, completely open to everything from neo-Nazis to communists, it doesn't change your First Amendment right. It doesn't change how much power your First Amendment right has. It's like the same thing as like going into Walmart. And if Walmart has a policy, that doesn't change your constitutional right. It's just one little pocket of one little corporate fiction that they have restrictions or openness, and it doesn't change your life in any significant way.
Yeah, and what's, again, like I said, I mentioned the question, and we always have to have and ask the right questions. But the question that begins with a lot of social media outlets are the wrong questions, because those questions are usually of a lower caliber. It feeds into ideas that don't matter. And people need to start producing their own questions through high levels of discrimination on a daily basis to exercise that muscle, so that we don't create a government whom the people have given power to destroy us. This is all our own doing, and we're doing it now again. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna go, and it's like, yeah, this Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal idea is creating barriers that don't exist, very much like language and culture create barriers for the realization of God. So many people have all of these different perspectives, and no one actually has a unifying principle. So again, getting the questions right since the beginning is the key here. And we don't want to lose sight of what's important. And that is like who we are, what is the Constitution, what is inalienable rights, what's trust law, what's, uniform commercial code. Not that you have to know these things, but acknowledge that they exist at least, because then we can start to like look at it and see it for what it is, and then be able to take steps according to how they're structured. It doesn't have to be a conflict with the government. It doesn't have to be a conflict with Twitter or corporations or other agencies. It could be a seamless process.
I agree. And I think that'll be the natural consequence of people reclaiming their power and focusing on their own sphere of influence, rather than being just tossed about by the winds that are blown on the mainstream stage every single day. And I think, just to drive this point home, I'd like to show a website here, an article that shows you who the actual shareholders are of Twitter, the top shareholders. And, surprise, surprise, it's not Elon Musk who has the most control over it. So pull this up here. All right. So we have the top 5 Twitter shareholders, and this goes into, on the 25th, Twitter reported it would be acquired by Elon Musk for $54.20 a share, $44 billion. Okay, so you would think, oh, that means that he's got the biggest shares. Well, we'll come down here. Number 1, the Vanguard Group Incorporated. The Vanguard Group holds the largest stake in Twitter. One of the biggest investment managers globally, Vanguard offers hundreds of mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement products. The company had about $8.1 trillion in assets under management as of January 31st, 2022. Vanguard funds owned about 82.4 million Twitter shares, representing 10.3% of shares outstanding as of March 31st, 2022. Okay, and then we have Elon Musk, who has a 9.2 stake in the company, so less than Vanguard. And then who's the third biggest, or I guess fourth biggest holder, is the one that I'm interested in, BlackRock. Now, the interesting thing about BlackRock is that a majority of the shareholders and power of BlackRock is the Vanguard Group. And the biggest shareholders of the Vanguard Group, BlackRock. So here we're seeing, like, this is so quintessentially indicative of like where our attention is going constantly. And it shows that, we're all focused on this guy, the number 2 guy, Elon Musk, the cheerleader, the idol, the character, the, hero of the story.
So what?
Meanwhile,
Yeah. So what? He has a couple $100 billion. BlackRock has 10 trillion under assets, and it's a multinational organization. What do you think their interests are versus Elon's interests are?
And how many people have never even heard of BlackRock or Vanguard? These people own all the major news corporations, all of the major pharmaceutical companies. They're one of the biggest real estate owners in the world. And they're currently taking it upon themselves to buy up as many single family homes, like starter homes for first-time buyers, that has ever been acquired in history.
Yeah. There's an interest, you know, not even to like influence for the degree of like an evil doing. Not even there. Like, we're not even there yet. Like, it's just a simple matter of their interests are so large that they have to be worried about the consumer, you, who attributes those 10 trillions to them. So if they're owning not only real estate, but think about all the sectors in the different industries, you know, they are trying to control your opinion legally, right? Through all the technology that's basically out there, so that you can form the opinions that you have, so that you can ask those questions that prevent you from asking and doing the things that actually matter and are powerful. Anything that they're blasting out on social media is, as we've seen, an obvious and blatant attempt to try to skew the attention of someone, the consumer, to something else.
Yeah. And, you know, I always like to drive this point home that we like to externalize our own power and say, oh, this BlackRock and this Vanguard, they're doing this to me. When in reality, it is the average person's ignorance and complacency that creates a BlackRock to rule over them. If the average person was self-actualized and paying attention and in control of their own self to the degree that that's possible, there would be no ominous, all-pervading dark force that would have this kind of control over us. But anytime that there's this level of ignorance, a BlackRock and a Vanguard will pop up to fill that vacuum created by our ignorance.
Yeah, and it's easy to just be like, oh, you see, it's them. It's like, it's like them are a reflection of what we've allowed to have happened. And it's our tolerance and our knowledge of what this is and our reflection and ultimately the projection of reality, with not just a mental thing, but a grounded thing on soil, on common law, with contracts, so that all of this becomes just background noise, and you get to live on in a family free of I mean, think about Hollywood, end of the world movies, just all this you know, scarcity. There's not enough room, not enough money, not enough oil, not enough anything. You know, you better depend on us. Get on food stamps. We got you. We will, no, forget about your own supply chain. Leave those berries in the dirt. Come over here at Costco and we'll provide you what you need. Did I?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I showed you. There was I screenshot it a few days ago. It was, you know, one of the bear channels, who was a follower of Owen Benjamin, and it was Owen Benjamin. He had a picture. One of them was a lion who was just out in the field, and then the other lion was basically in a cage. And it said one of these lions has free food, right? Has free shelter, air conditioning, has routine, has medical, all this stuff. Dude, who is the one who imposed upon us that we need assurances in life?
Right.
Who says you deserve anything? Why are we're born and we're entitled to things? No, like everything's built on our backs. Like we have to earn what we get, not have these assurances be sold to us. So in the name of what? You know, the opposite, in the name of privacy, in the name of freedom, equality. It's like, dude, all that does is destroy, you know, an entire nation. And we've seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on a more spiritual note, when you're so focused on these external assurances and insurance and all of these things, you're not really existing on faith, which I think, most people at this point in the game kind of need to have a palpable sense of in their life. Define it however you want. If you want to say it's the universe, if you want to say it's God, if you want to say it's Buddha, whatever, but develop a palpable sense that there is a higher order to things and that you can rely on that and trust it to guide you. And it's been my direct experience that the more you do that, the more kind of enchanted your reality becomes. And the more, you do these trust falls, and each time you get carried off to a better and better place. And, all of this fear and anxiety and, needing security and all of this, it really robs you of that experience.
Yeah. And just to clarify, because we've talked about this before, you and I, faith is not just blind faith. And this is something that I've told people before. I said, because they asked me, I'm like, do you believe in God? And I'm like, absolutely not. Why would I believe in God? Then what does that say about me? What is the substance to which is evidence to the thing not seen? Okay. Well, in that case, my response is, no, I tested God. So I know him. I've experienced God. And that's a completely different approach rather than just being, oh yeah, I don't know what's going on in the world. Everything's so complex. I'll say a few mantras, a few prayers or whatever, and then something will land. It's like, no, everything here is calculated. Everything is designed perfectly. Everything that people call nature is, everything that people call magic is just nature and divine timing of God. That's it. And so when people think of freedom and all these liberties, like, this thing is not just an idea, it's rooted in action. And that action has to be provable by you. Like, what steps are you doing to cement the truth in you?
Mm-hmm. Brian says, appreciate you guys. We appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for checking in. And as always, if anyone has any questions, feel free to chime in and shoot. Now, as far as the rest of the live goes, I know we did want to touch on the Rhode Island thing. And, I don't even know if we really need to pull up the screen share for the article because it's so just insane and
I saw
sad, honestly.
I actually looked at it just before getting on the call too. It's like not even 2 pages, maybe 2 pages at most.
It's not really getting traction either.
It's like, here's the bill, and it says if you're over 16 years old, like, you have to get the vaccine. If you don't, there's a penalty. And it's for individuals it's $50. For business organization, for employers, right, those who are contracted by the federal government, they get a $5,000 and that's how they, as a union, start to kind of clean up their organization. They're like, hey, we need people who are complacent. We need people who are drones to do it as we say. This is what we're going to pay. And so that's when, like, this is how it all happened in states. It's like they go after the employers. So the employers have no choice. They've built a business, they've built an empire and a state and everything in this great country, but they thought that they were doing it under common law, under the Constitution. But then they realized that this was a legal fiction, that this is a commercial entity, and that everything is taxable. It's like, well, then your choices are limited, and it's unfortunate. But things like this bill, when they laid this out, and I read, I'm like, obviously this is literally, because who knows, man? Like, I don't even know by reading it if someone was actually serious. Like, I know who signed in this bill, but honest to God, I cannot say if these people are serious or not, or because they understand the science of the phenomenon of human behavior and psychology, they pull this bill out so that people can have a reaction, right? And I'm a financial trader. I do my analytics on the financial markets, and there's always patterns to these things. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did that without even considering the serious repercussions. I think yesterday they also appointed the new state police and praised it because he was a Black gentleman, and they were like, we're doing so good, this is a great state and all this stuff. But I couldn't believe how short it was and that people were talking so much about it. And it's like, why are we even entertaining, these ideas. Like, I feel it's like fear mongering too, because that's when like a lot of COVID started, dude. Like, fine, share information, share information, because more knowledge, more power, more awareness. But then when that information starts to be like suggestive, that fear that the writer has is projected onto you, and that you should alike also fear, I hate it, dude. Because
Yeah.
who are you to tell me to be scared? Who are you?
Right.
Like, you have fear. Like, I'm under God. Like, I'm fearless. You and I don't operate from the same. They operate from fear and not knowing, versus, I think the average man of God is operating from his heart and does the things that are righteous and good and under his will.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of, what I would say is the technical loophole that we get to exploit in order to share this information is that, we can talk about what's going on in Rhode Island because, as you brilliantly pointed out, it highlights the nature of all of these business owners, how they actually get their hooks in you. All ththese business owners operating LLCs, C Corps, S Corps, they all are technically in business with the government. And so if you want to continue to be in business with the government, you have to do what the government says. Whereas if these businesses were operating in private through a private trust, there is no implied consent, there is no contract, there is no business relationship that establishes a precedent that says, oh, I have to do this if you put it down the line. And so we're hoping that, as these headlines come out and as these brazen actions get taken and suggested, that people understand that what we're saying is there's a way out of all of this. And you don't have to be afraid. And that, I think a lot of people are so jaded that they think, we have no power. They say jump, we have to say how high or we end up in prison. But what we're here to say is that that may be the status quo, but when you actually try to enforce these rules against private individuals, it falls apart in court every single time. Like the mask travel mandate in airlines that got lifted, it was because of a lawsuit of an organization that finally got their case in front of a federal judge. They can lay these mandates out and freak everybody out and let it stand for a while, but every single time, once a federal judge has to weigh it against the Constitution, it falls apart. So what we're trying to show people is that we need you to take action. We need you to keep your head level and not be afraid, so that when the time comes, you can take the appropriate steps, bring the correct actions, and correct the course of this behemoth, because that is the discarded role of the people. The people have that power and that responsibility, but we've not used it for the last over 200 years, basically since the Civil War.
Just like you mentioned, it's as long as the people remain in fear and they don't bring the right claims, they're not fighting, they're not expressing with clarity, with astute observations and with the help of potentially legal counsel to bring these issues to the higher courts. But until we do that, you're going to have lower district courts, corporations trying to control everything that you're going to do. And just because everybody else didn't do anything about it, and your job and financial security depends on it, now you have no other choice. Like, why would you ever, like, if anybody ever, like, think about this actually, if you were told when you signed up to be a W-2 that you would be forced to not work because of some emergency thing, putting your life and financial security at stake, if not obliterated, would anybody do a W-2? Absolutely not. But we're not disclosed these things because these are the implications that come with operating a W-2. You're working for the government. You really have no choice. That's why we recommend, right, operating a different legal entity, using a trust, using an irrevocable trust, to be able to exit out of their jurisdiction, to be able to conduct business privately, no matter what industry, income level that you have. This is about being able to control the operations that you can grant. And you as an individual, as a human living being, have been granted powers by God that are self-evident by us to be able to institute in indentures and provisions so that we may benefit the real public, not this fictitious democratic fascia of a people that we think are people, which are nothing but legal fictions. What I'm talking about, the real public, is the people that are listening now, who want to understand how to work in the private, that we can come in and deliver and show them how to do this, not only just through paperwork, but through proper education, through the proper means. You have assets, you have insurance, you have all of these situations. Come down, give us a submission of your information. We get you a consult and we break down and strategize how to go through this, because these aren't just concepts that we're talking about. We're addressing problems, and it's actually quite easy because they give us every single day some problem to talk about, because most of them are erroneous problems. They're not actual problems, but then it brings us to be able to ask the bigger questions that in turn help us bring the true solution to you guys. Because at the end of the day, how does the government have any power? Who granted them this? Who declared trust? And one of the things that I just want to mention just quickly before we move on to something else and get some questions is to bring a clarity behind what trust is on a very principle level, right? Other than like the parties to a trust, grantor, trustee, beneficiary, trust is sheer power. It's power. You cannot have power without trust. Any power granted in this world, either from the Pope, by God, or to the monarchs who are trustees, is through trust. And most people do not understand this because they have not understood what is to provide evidence that you are of God and you are not of the water, that you are not some lost legal fiction, that you are in fact a human being designed in the image of God and have all these rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's one of the greatest lost skills that we have. Just thinking clearly and understanding where you're actually at and what's actually happening around you is truly a lost art form. And I think, for the remainder of the time here, I would like to get into our private trust explained link and just show everybody, because all the time, especially on Instagram, and if people are on other platforms, please follow us on Instagram. That seems to be the best platform that we get the most traction on. Facebook is just, it's a dead zone. I mean, we don't do any advertising, but organic reach is an absolute joke on Facebook. At least on Instagram, we've been able to organically grow our audience, and
TikTok surprisingly very, very quick, man. Very quick.
TikTok as well. It's one of the places where the algorithm has not really cranked up the censorship so much. I'm sure it's coming. All these platforms do great as they're gaining popularity, but there is a window of time for us to still get out there and have an organic reach and an audience. So follow us on Instagram. And the reason why I bring up Instagram is because we post there all the time, and we talk about, check the private link, private trust explained link in our bio. And a lot of people, it's such a cliche when you're on Facebook, link in bio. And they assume when they hear those words that it's just some sleazy, emotional, manipulative sales pitch, funnel page that we send people off to make them feel afraid or emotional so that they'll buy what we're selling. But that's why I wanted to go into this, to show people what that private trust explained link actually is. And so I'll pull that up now. And so when you get here, we are at https://courses.frontiercapitaltrust.com/private trust explained. And when you get in here, we have this short video here. It's about 9.5 minutes long. This gives you a really great, just kind of general overview of what trusts are, historical case examples, some of the benefits and possibilities of using trust. We created this so that it would answer a lot of the preliminary questions and give people a solid basis to understand some of the deeper concepts that you'll be getting into. And so after the free video, we have the enrollment application here. This is for people that want to get on a call with us. 30 minutes, no obligation, doesn't cost anything. All you do is put in an application that says, this is who I am. This is kind of the various situations that I'm dealing with. I got a couple of these type of businesses. I'm hoping to accomplish these things. You know, I have a couple investment accounts and some assets. I want to know what I could do with them. Can I protect them? Can I move them? Can I sell them? What can I do? And we'll get on a call with you and explain all of that stuff, let you know, hey, if you want to go all the way over into the private, completely 100% protected, this is an option. Or if you want to have just some assets in the trust and leave your business alone so that you have provable income, that's where we really get into each person's situation and let you know, like, these are what your options are, and this is the potential that you're working with right now.
Yeah,
and so these
are very different. So it's important to us to make sure that, you know, we hear every single person who is or applicant exactly what their situation is and what they want to do relative to their goals.
Exactly. And so far, I mean, the breadth of different scenarios and types of people that we've worked with so far is pretty cool. And the fact that we've been able to find a solution that makes it extremely worthwhile for each person is just like, it's such a blessing for us to be in the business that we're in, because every day we get to help people from all walks of life do really amazing things that will have effects for generations to come. Like, this knowledge, once it is infused into somebody's lineage, it doesn't go away. This information is going to be passed on from generation to generation. And it's going to continue to grow and evolve and benefit the people that are doing it. And the next piece here is the Principles of Trusteeship ebook. And I really wanted to go into this as well, because, again, there's so many people out there that are selling some fantastical thing or some, you know, fad item, and they have an ebook, right? And what you download the ebook, and what is it? It's like emotional appeal, cliffhanger, look inside, like, here's just a taste, you know, purchase for the rest of it. And I wanted to show everybody everything that's in our ebook. It's 18 pages long. And also, when you sign up for 20?
Yeah.
Okay. So 20 pages long, and it has, when you sign up for it, you get a 14-day tutorship email sequence that just like breaks down one of the core concepts of trusts and the possibilities in common law, one per day for 14 days that we kind of, again, we understand people don't understand much about this. So it's necessary to take these bite-sized steps, bits of information. And here we have all of the things that you can find in the ebook. And then I'll just show you some of the ebook itself. And as you can see here, this is not like cursory, you know, haphazardly thrown together information. This
actually, that's the older one.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought this is the one that I got from the email that I just signed up for.
Well, if you did, then we have to update it. What?
It was an old email that I had signed up with.
Okay. So maybe get a new one, because I'm sure I think I updated. But yeah, I put in your information, and then you get the new principal trusteeship. You get a PDF and also a video.
Here we go.
Hopefully this is it. Yes. Beautiful. I recognized it because it's more text. And this is 20 pages, and the letters are a little smaller, so it's more content. But regardless, this is technical. This is the technicality. Like, we don't sugarcoat things. We are pretty blunt with what it needs and what's necessary to be a super successful trustee and be able to manage everything, every aspect of your commercial and private life. And so this kind of lays out exactly the things that one can do, one can amend, the powers and rights of the grantor, trustee, and beneficiaries, We have also examples, living examples of politicians, well-known individuals using these types of trusts for asset protection, and also, asset protection, from creditors and also from the IRS. So this is very, very technical stuff, and I recommend that anybody who has any notion, even for a moment, that you thought this is something you can get into and be serious about, get this book. Either watch the video or read this whole thing. You're going to get an outstanding overview of the power of an express trust and trusts in general, because most people don't know the roles they play in our lives today. So I think that's important as well. And so,
Yeah.
when you're one more thing, just when you guys are looking at this PDF, just know that everything on here, you don't have to know in order to open up a trust. You can contact us, put in an application, get a consult with us. But this helps to be prepared for you to understand what to expect. Anybody who is, of sound mind and age can, who has, even a slight fiduciary responsibility record to do this. Anybody can do this. This is, a lot of extra material for people to come in, because we want our clients and the people that come into our consults to kind of be ready, and be like, hey, I kind of know what this is. I know what I want to do. And then you kind of give us the meat and potatoes of your situation, and then we concoct a wonderful strategy to implement the trust into your current existing situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what this brings to mind for me is that when you're making extraordinary claims, you need extraordinary evidence. And, the biggest hurdle that people have for getting involved with this work is they hear about the things that we're claiming to do. And even though we show proof of it, they need more to chew on, help them step over the line and step out of their fear and step into their power. And that's the purpose behind this ebook, is that, for every, 4 or 5 people that are not going to ever do a deep dive on this information, we have 1 or 2 that's really interested in this sovereignty stuff, really interested in this law stuff, where they, maybe they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in business operations and, a wide array of assets and income streams. And those people are going to need this kind of resource to show that we're not just making outrageous claims here, that the stuff that we're talking about is based in law that is hundreds of years old. And, this is catered to those people to help you do this deep dive, understand the framework that we're operating in, and step over the line to, work with us and actually take this knowledge and actualize it in their own life. So I'm always highly impressed with Javier's ability to research and compile this information. And this information, I'll tell you, when we started this endeavor together, this information didn't exist anywhere in this form. And we're giving it away for free, so this is hundreds of hours of research and hundreds of hours of compiling and organizing and putting together. And we're giving it away for free because this information needs to get out there. We know that, you can read all of this stuff and understand it conceptually, but when it comes to actual experience of putting these tools in use, that's where we are indispensable, and why we are worth working with and paying, frankly, for what we do, is that we can take anybody in any situation. And even if you decide to never research this stuff and you decide to never really dive into the course material and really become learned about this of yourself, we have a lot of clients who don't do that. They just work with us on a consult basis, and they get all of their needs met, and they understand it enough so that they can be responsible and adequate in their ability to operate their trust.
Yeah.
And so
exactly. And this is why we furnish, our online course, because we also not only want to be able to provide a service that obviously is that is perpetuating this business, but we want to make sure that we can create an institution that allows for people to create legacies, and that people can come back to this information and be able to have confidence in the way that they want to structure their life in reality. Because we have contracts, we live under, you know, W-2 situations, 1099 situations, cash off situations, we have different assets, and all of these things are important to have serious considerations. And with our expertise, we can surely provide solutions. We've been providing solutions for everybody in multiple different states, even internationally. Yeah,
And
trust. Yeah, the trust name, another trust as a beneficiary. Absolutely, of course. It's an easy question. That's great.
And Leanna Belanger Gerchik says, have you had a conversation with this organization? I don't know if that was supposed to be her tagging somebody else, but we are here for questions. If you have any questions for us, we welcome that. And yeah, so, you know, if anybody has any questions at all, please send them our way. This is our specialty, is answering questions. And
I want to pull up the private trust explained and show them that section that shows what they get and the value, just so that there's a visual on there, so we can end this call so that they can see, you know, what we're all about. Because ultimately there's going to be people on here, they're like, okay, what are they talking about? What are they servicing? What are they providing? Let's just give them to them straight.
Yeah. Okay. Let me start the screen share again.
Yeah. And please, anybody who's listening, just if you don't have questions now, we're doing this every Wednesday at 1. So unless we don't say we're not going to do it, you know, I'd take the time to straighten out some questions.
And this is the part that you're talking about, correct?
Go down. There we go. What included, and then the value. The text is pretty small, so I'm not sure if anybody can see, but if you can read a couple of those.
Yeah. So what's included, and we have several tiers of service. You can either just get the course, or you can get consulting as well. We always recommend the consulting, just because not everybody has the bookworm capabilities to translate this kind of dense information into action steps for themselves. But we do have lifetime email support as well for every client that we take on. So we get the official trust declaration paperwork and done for you administrative templates. We have several templates that you can use after your trust is opened to accomplish various tasks with the trust, adding trustees, naming successors, engaging in contracts with the trust, all sorts of things. And we have templates for all of that. Plus, we customize a trust declaration contract for you and give it to you ready to go to the bank. Online membership area, we're developing a video library, all our PDF lessons plans, FAQs, exercises.
Everything's downloadable.
Right. And you can print it off and have it there and, you know, study it, so you don't have to spend time staring at a screen. We have 3.5 course modules with more being developed every day. We only started this about, 9 or 10 months ago. So the course is effective as a standalone right now, but we're going to continually be adding to it and refining it over the coming years, because, as Javier said, we want this to be a bastion. We want this to be something, a pillar that will uphold these principles long after we're gone. So we're going to be continually refining that and updating it. Lifetime student email support and additional consulting. And you know, as always, this is for people who don't want to spend time doing the deep reading and the contemplating to understand how to create action steps out of all this stuff. Like I said before, we've taken people with no understanding of trust whatsoever, who have fairly simple to complex needs, that are able to, over the course of 2 consults, completely move their operations to the degree they wanted to over to the trust and use it to its fullest capacity for their goals easily. It doesn't take much effort on our part. We're really good at making this stuff make sense to people. And so the value: prepared document templates worth over $5,000. If you go to a statutory or an attorney to get a statutory trust, it's not going to have the same power. It's not going to have the same privacy. It's not going to have the same flexibility, and it'll cost you about $5,000 to $7,000.
And may I add, because this is not on here, but the common law trust is essentially foreign to the jurisdiction of the United States corporation. So being that offers an extra value because it's essentially by law an offshore trust without having to be offshore. Offshore trusts can range on a minimum from $15,000 to $40,000 each.
Yeah. And as we were saying before, the power and flexibility that you have as a private individual creating one of these trusts is vastly different than one that you're going to get from an attorney who basically, once again, marries the state into that contract and imposes all sorts of unnecessary rules and restrictions. The theme here is that the private person has the power. The people have the power. And only when we invert that order by giving up that power do we end up in the situation that we're currently in. And yearly tax benefits from 40 to 100% reduction. So, here we have the option of just writing off some expenses and donating to a trust, to restructuring through a trust completely and making your income streams through the trust, which makes it 100% tax-free. Asset protection. You can put any asset that your person can own into a trust, and it completely separates legal ownership from your person. That means that if somebody brings a lawsuit against you, or the IRS makes a tax determination against you, their normal course of action would be to lien your home or make a judgment against your property. They can't do those things to property that's held in a trust. It's not in the name of your person, and it legally has nothing to do with your person. You just are a manager of those assets for the beneficiaries. Same thing applies with probate estate planning. Passing stuff down to your heirs is seamless. They are successor trustees. They never legally own the assets. They inherit the right of managing them. And because of that, there is no inheritance tax. There is no probate that needs to be dealt with. When you expire, they seamlessly take the reins of that coffer and begin to manage it the same way that you did. And the trustee education, as you guys can probably see, we know what we're talking about. We've helped a lot of people do all this stuff, and our passion is making you as affluent and as confident and competent as we are managing your affairs this way. And our pricing structure, we are charitably structured to help people in low-income situations. So we do offer scholarship options, as it says below, for people that are in low income or really acute financial hardship situations. And we offer these tiers of service, from just course access to a full scheme of consulting packages. And the prices will vary depending on that, but our goal is to meet everybody where they're at and get this information into competent hands. Now, we don't give it away for free, because every time we do that, just about, and we have in the past, people who get this information for free, they don't value it. Without some sort of a reasonable sacrifice that is honoring the power of this information, people cannot bring themselves to believe in what is possible with it. And so, it's one of the hard facts of life, but we do meet people where they're at. And our goal is to, everybody who puts in an application with us, it is our goal to make sure that you end up as a trustee. So as well, everybody who donates to our cause gets a tax deductible receipt. So, we just had tax day. If you filed an extension, well, I guess it would apply for next year, but, if you have tax liability, this is one way that you can write off some of that. So these are some of the benefits that you can look forward to if you decide to try to work with us, on top of just getting rid of fear and anxiety and uncertainty about the future. These are all things that you can look forward to.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for sharing that and reading that. That helps a lot. See if there's any more questions. If not, I mean, we're getting the hour here. Well, yeah, of course. Trust can protect from crippling student loans. Yeah. I mean, to what extent? I mean, there's different scenarios, but, if they're coming at you with student loans, I mean, they're coming after the person, they're not coming after the trust. So if you have obligations and you can't seem to pay and they're threatening you with, lien seizures or whatever, which for student loans is kind of unlikely, but, they want you to settle and pay, you can easily move all your assets over to the trust and start operating through the trust without having to deal with that student loan. Otherwise, look for debt validation methods to be able to validate that debt, so that it's not reflected in your credit report either, and clean that up.
And Amir says, I've had a conversation with this organization, Leanna, and my only regret is not knowing Frontier Capital Trust earlier. So we appreciate that.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Because, the other thing about this is that we got into this business because there was a sincere and desperate need for this kind of information. We're not the only people out here teaching people how to open and operate a private trust under common law. But everybody else who's out there, in our opinion, is offering a subpar level of service and a subpar level of education.
Yeah.
And so we decided to do this because there was a genuine and desperate need for the type of education and consulting that we're doing.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, unless there's any last second questions here, I think we're going to button this one up for today.
A good one.
Yeah, thank you everybody for checking this out. The replay should be up. I know for a fact it'll be on YouTube and on Facebook later on. I don't know about Instagram. I'm not sure if our stream software, we need to figure that out in the long run. But yeah, follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're really active over there. We do post on Facebook as well, but there's just not a sense of community and interaction going on there. So much love to everybody. Thank you for checking this out. And we'll be back on Wednesday at 1 p.m. next week.
Till next time, guys.
Take